I walked out to grab my morning coffee and froze on the front porch, my mug slipping from my fingers and shattering against the concrete. The solar panels I'd spent $20,000 installing just 3 weeks ago were gone. Completely gone. In their place sat a neat pile of broken glass and twisted aluminum frames dumped unceremoniously on my front lawn like industrial garbage. My name is Patrick Emerson, and I'm a software engineer living in Sacramento, California. I bought this house in the Meadowbrook Estates subdivision 2 years ago, drawn by the reasonable HOA fees and what seemed like sensible community guidelines. I should have known better. I really should have known better. I stood there in my bathrobe, staring at the wreckage of my investment, trying to process what I was seeing. The roof looked naked, without the panels, just bare shingles where sophisticated solar technology had been mounted professionally by a licensed contractor. My hands started shaking as the reality sunk in. Someone had actually climbed onto my roof and torn down my solar panels. My phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered it anyway, still in a daze. Mr. Emerson, this is Brenda Matthews from the Meadowbrook Estates HOA board. I'm calling to inform you that you've been assessed a fine of $15,000 for unauthorized structural modifications to your property. I couldn't speak for a moment. My brain was trying to connect the dots between the destruction on my lawn and this woman's cheerful, matter-of-fact voice. I'm sorry, what? I finally managed. Your solar panel installation violated Section 12.4 of the HOA bylaws regarding exterior modifications. We had them removed yesterday afternoon. You'll receive a formal invoice for the removal costs plus the fine within 5 business days. Have a great day. She hung up before I could respond. I stood there with the phone pressed to my ear, listening to dead air, wondering if I'd somehow slipped into an alternate reality where people could just destroy your property and then charge you for it. I immediately called the solar installation company, Sunbright Solutions. The owner, Marcus Chen, answered on the 3rd ring. Patrick, how are those panels working out for you? Marcus, they're gone. The HOA tore them down. There was a long silence. I'm sorry, what? They removed them. Yesterday, apparently. They're sitting in pieces on my front lawn right now. That's not possible. Patrick, we pulled all the permits. We checked everything. California has specific laws protecting solar installations. They can't just remove them. Well, they did, and now they're trying to fine me $15,000. Marcus let out a low whistle. Patrick, listen to me very carefully. Do not pay that fine. Do not sign anything. California Civil Code Section 714 explicitly prohibits HOAs from preventing solar panel installations. What they did is not just illegal, it's a felony. We're talking about willful destruction of property valued over $10,000. My hands stopped shaking. They'd crossed a line they didn't even know existed. What do? Document everything. Take pictures. Save every email, every letter, every phone call if you can. Then get yourself a lawyer who specializes in HOA law. I can recommend someone. Her name is Gloria Bennett, and she eats cases like this for breakfast. I spent the next hour taking photographs from every angle. The pile of destroyed panels, the exposed mounting brackets on my roof, the invoice I found tucked in my mailbox detailing the removal services totaling $8,000 plus the $15,000 fine. $23,000. They wanted me to pay them $23,000 for destroying my property. The invoice was signed by Brenda Matthews, HOA president. Below her signature was a note written in aggressive looping cursive. Perhaps next time you'll think twice before making modifications without board approval. Rules exist for a reason. I called Gloria Bennett's office. Her assistant said she could see me that afternoon at 3. I agreed immediately, then called my boss to say I'd be taking a personal day. He knew about the solar panel installation and how excited I'd been about it, so he didn't give me any trouble. At 2:45, I walked into Gloria Bennett's law office in downtown Sacramento. She was in her late 40s, with short gray hair and sharp green eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. I spread my documentation across her conference table while she listened to my story without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who'd just been handed a gift. Mr. Emerson, do you know what solar rights are? Marcus mentioned something about Civil Code Section 714. That's part of it. California has some of the strongest solar protection laws in the country. The Solar Rights Act, AB 2188, the California Solar Rights Alliance protections. HOAs are explicitly prohibited from preventing or unreasonably restricting solar installations. They can have aesthetic guidelines, but those guidelines can't significantly increase the cost or significantly decrease the efficiency of the system. Did you submit any paperwork to the HOA before installation? I nodded. I submitted a request to the Architectural Review Committee 6 weeks before installation. I never heard back, so I assumed they approved it. The bylaws state that if they don't respond within 30 days, the request is automatically approved. Gloria's smile widened. Did you keep copies of that submission? Yes, I have the certified mail receipt showing they received it, and I have the date stamp. That was 8 weeks ago. Mr. Emerson, your HOA didn't just commit a civil violation. They committed criminal vandalism, possibly criminal conspiracy, trespassing, and theft of property exceeding $10,000. That's a felony in California. But more importantly for our purposes, they violated multiple state statutes protecting solar installations. We're going to sue them for the replacement cost of your panels, installation costs, attorney's fees, and punitive damages. And then we're going to file a criminal complaint with the district attorney's office. I felt a weight lift off my chest. How long will this take? That depends on how stupid they want to be about it. If they're smart, they'll settle quickly. If they want to fight, we'll take them to court and they'll lose badly. Either way, you're going to be made whole. And they're going to learn a very expensive lesson about California solar law. I left her office feeling better than I had all day. Gloria said she'd draft a demand letter immediately and have it delivered to the HOA board by tomorrow morning. She also said she'd contact the district attorney's office about the criminal matter. That evening, I got my first taste of the HOA's true nature. At 6:30, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Brenda Matthews herself standing on my porch, accompanied by 2 other middle-aged women I recognized from neighborhood block parties. Brenda was exactly what you'd picture when someone says HOA Karen. She had that particular haircut, the one that somehow suggests management-seeking behavior. Her face was pinched in perpetual disapproval, and she carried a leather portfolio like it was a shield. Mr. Emerson, I'm Brenda Matthews. We need to discuss your attitude problem. I leaned against the doorframe. My attitude problem? You destroyed $20,000 worth of my property. You violated the community bylaws. Actions have consequences. Actually, Brenda, I submitted my architectural review request 8 weeks ago. Your bylaws state that failure to respond within 30 days constitutes automatic approval. So I had approval. And even if I hadn't, California law explicitly protects solar installations from HOA interference. Her face went red. I don't care what California law says. These are our community standards and you will respect them. One of the other women, a brunette with too much makeup, chimed in. We can't have people just putting up whatever they want. It affects all our property values. Solar panels increase property values, I said. There are dozens of studies proving that. Brenda stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with proximity. You need to pay that fine, Mr. Emerson, and you need to pay for the removal costs. If you don't, we'll place a lien on your property. Go ahead. My lawyer will have that lien reversed so fast your head will spin, and while we're in court, we'll be discussing the felony vandalism charges you're facing. The color drained from her face. Felony? You can't be serious. Destruction of property exceeding $10,000. That's a felony in California. My lawyer is contacting the district attorney's office tomorrow. The third woman, a blonde with a pearl necklace, grabbed Brenda's arm. Brenda, maybe we should consult our lawyer before this goes any further. Brenda shook her off. We don't need a lawyer. We have the bylaws on our side. The bylaws don't supersede state law, I said, and California takes solar rights very seriously. You made a massive mistake, and now you're going to pay for it. Literally. Brenda's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She wasn't used to being challenged. People in this neighborhood generally just rolled over when the HOA board made demands. I wasn't going to be one of those people. You'll regret this, she finally said. This community doesn't tolerate troublemakers. Is that a threat? because my lawyer would love to add harassment to the complaint. They left in a huff, and I closed the door, my heart pounding. I'd never been confrontational like that before, but something about their absolute conviction that they could do whatever they wanted had flipped a switch in me. The next morning, Gloria's demand letter arrived at the HOA office via process server. She sent me a copy. It was a beautiful document, laying out in precise legal language exactly how badly the board had screwed up. It demanded immediate payment of $55,000, covering the cost of replacement panels, installation, my deductible, attorney's fees, and compensation for my time and stress. It gave them 10 days to respond before we filed suit. 3 days later, I received a certified letter from the HOA. They were doubling down. The letter, again signed by Brenda Matthews, stated that they rejected my claims and were proceeding with the lien process. They also informed me that my HOA voting privileges were being suspended for creating discord in the community. I forwarded everything to Gloria, who called me within an hour. "They're insane," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. "I've never seen an HOA board this committed to self-destruction. We're filing suit tomorrow. I'm also moving forward with the criminal complaint. I spoke with an assistant DA I know. He's very interested in this case." "Really?" "Patrick, the state of California has been trying to encourage solar adoption for years. HOAs that interfere with that policy are a major obstacle. Your case could set an important precedent. The DA's office wants to send a message." The lawsuit was filed on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, my doorbell was ringing constantly. Neighbors wanted to know what was going on. Some were supportive, others were hostile. One guy, Tom from 3 houses down, told me I was ruining the neighborhood. His wife, fortunately, told him to shut up and apologize to me. The local news picked up the story on Wednesday. A reporter named Jennifer Wu from Channel 3 News contacted me and asked if I'd be willing to do an interview. Gloria advised me to accept. Jennifer and her camera crew came out Thursday morning. She interviewed me in front of my house, the pile of destroyed panels still visible in the background. I told her everything: the lack of response to my architectural review request, the destruction of my property, the attempted fine, the state laws protecting solar installations. "Why do you think the HOA board reacted so strongly?" Jennifer asked. "I think they're used to having absolute power in this community, and they don't like being told no. But California law is very clear on this issue. Solar panels are protected. What they did is not just illegal, it's a felony." The interview aired on the 6 o'clock news. By 7, my phone was exploding with calls and texts. Some were from neighbors expressing support. Others were from reporters wanting follow-up interviews. 3 were from other HOA victims asking for Gloria's contact information. One call stood out. It was from a man named Richard Paulson, who identified himself as a member of the HOA board. "Mr. Emerson, I need to speak with you. Not as a board member, as a neighbor. I didn't know about the panel removal until after it happened. Brenda organized it without consulting the rest of us. I've been trying to get the board to back down, but she won't listen. I think you should know that not all of us support what happened." "Then why haven't you said anything publicly?" "Because Brenda controls the board through pure force of personality. She's the president, she's the treasurer, and her friend Carol is the secretary. The 2 other board members are intimidated by her. I'm the only one who's pushed back, and she's been threatening to remove me from the board." "Can she do that?" "No, but she can make my life hell." "Look, I'm calling because I think you should know what she's planning. She's talking about assessing every homeowner in the neighborhood a special fee to pay for the legal defense. She's telling people that you're the problem, that you're costing everyone money with your frivolous lawsuit." I felt anger rising in my chest. "My lawsuit isn't frivolous. She destroyed my property." "I know that. You know that. But half the neighborhood doesn't understand HOA law or solar rights. They just hear that legal fees are going up because of you. Brenda is very good at spinning narratives." "What do you want me to do about it?" "Come to the next HOA meeting. It's this Saturday at 2. Present your case to the community. Let people hear your side directly. Brenda is planning to hold a vote to approve the special assessment. If enough people hear the truth, maybe we can stop this before it gets worse." I thanked him and hung up, then immediately called Gloria. Should I go to the meeting? I asked. Absolutely, but I'm coming with you. And Patrick, don't let them bait you into losing your temper. Stay calm, state the facts, and let me handle any legal questions. Saturday arrived too quickly. I spent Friday night barely sleeping, running through what I wanted to say. Gloria had advised me to keep it simple and focus on the law. The meeting was held in the community clubhouse, a building I'd been inside exactly twice since moving to the neighborhood. When Gloria and I arrived at 1:55, the parking lot was packed. Apparently, Brenda had done a good job drumming up attendance. We walked in to find at least 75 people crammed into a room designed for 50. Brenda sat at a table at the front with her 4 board members. Her face went stony when she saw Gloria. "This is a homeowners meeting," Brenda said coldly. "Your attorney isn't a homeowner." "Actually," Gloria replied smoothly, "California Corporations Code, Section 5200 states that homeowners have the right to be accompanied by anyone they choose at HOA meetings, including legal counsel. If you'd like to violate another state law today, please continue." Brenda's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. Richard Paulson, sitting at the far end of the board table, caught my eye and gave a subtle nod. The meeting started with standard business, minutes from the last meeting, financial reports, updates on landscaping contracts. I barely paid attention, focused on the confrontation I knew was coming. Finally, Brenda cleared her throat. "We now move to new business. As you all know, we have a legal situation that has arisen from Mr. Emerson's refusal to comply with community standards. His lawsuit against the HOA is going to cost us money, potentially a lot of money. I'm proposing a special assessment of $500 per household to cover our legal defense costs." Murmurs rippled through the room. $500 wasn't nothing, especially dropped on people without warning. An older man in the front row raised his hand. "Why exactly are we being sued?" "Because Mr. Emerson installed solar panels without proper approval, we had them removed, and now he's claiming we violated some obscure state law." "It's not obscure," Gloria said, standing up. "May I address the room?" Brenda looked like she'd bitten into a lemon. "This isn't an open forum." "Actually," Richard said, surprising everyone, "California Corporations Code Section 5450 requires that homeowners be given a reasonable opportunity to speak at meetings. I move that we allow Mr. Emerson and his attorney to address the assembly." Carol, the secretary and Brenda's friend, immediately said, "I second that motion. We should hear both sides." Wait, that wasn't right. I looked at Carol in confusion. She avoided eye contact with Brenda. "All in favor?" Richard asked quickly. 4 hands went up. The brunette woman from my porch, whose name I'd learned was Deborah, was the only board member who didn't vote yes. Brenda looked betrayed, but had no choice. Gloria stepped forward. "Thank you. I'll keep this brief. California has comprehensive laws protecting solar installations. Civil Code Section 714, Civil Code Section 714.1, and numerous other statutes make it illegal for HOAs to prevent or unreasonably restrict solar panels. Mr. Emerson submitted his architectural review request 8 weeks before installation. Your own bylaws state that requests not responded to within 30 days are automatically approved. The HOA didn't just violate its own rules, it violated multiple state laws." "But the bylaws say no exterior modifications without approval," Deborah interjected. "The bylaws can't supersede state law," Gloria replied. "If your bylaws said homeowners couldn't have fire alarms, that wouldn't make it legal to remove fire alarms. State law trumps HOA rules, always. The HOA board not only removed Mr. Emerson's legally protected solar panels, but they also destroyed property worth over $20,000. In California, that's felony vandalism. The district attorney's office is currently reviewing the case for criminal prosecution." The room erupted. People started talking over each other. Someone shouted, "Felony!" Another voice called out, "Why didn't anyone tell us about these laws?" Brenda banged a gavel on the table. "Order! This is just scare tactics. Our HOA attorney says we have a strong case." "Who's your attorney?" Gloria asked. "Nah, that's confidential." "No, it's not. Homeowners have a right to know who's representing them and what advice that attorney is giving, but I can guess." You probably hired someone cheap who doesn't specialize in HOA law and definitely doesn't specialize in California solar rights law. That attorney is going to lose badly, and this community is going to foot the bill. I stood up. Can I say something? Brenda looked like she wanted to refuse, but too many eyes were on her. Fine, make it quick. I don't want to sue the HOA. I don't want to cost anyone money. I just want my solar panels replaced. All Brenda had to do was not destroy my property. But she did, and then she tried to fine me for it. Now she wants all of you to pay for her mistake. The law is on my side. Every attorney who's looked at this case has said the same thing. The HOA will lose. So you can pay $500 now for a legal defense that won't work. And then you'll pay even more when we win, and the HOA has to cover damages and attorney's fees. Or the board can settle now, replace my panels, and this all goes away. Tom, the guy who'd told me I was ruining the neighborhood, stood up. I think we should fight. If we let him get away with this, everyone's going to start putting up whatever they want. It's not about getting away with anything, I replied, keeping my voice level. It's about following the law. California wants people to use solar power. The state has made it explicitly legal. If you want to put up solar panels on your house, you can. The HOA can't stop you. That's not me being difficult. That's state law. A woman in the back raised her hand. I've been thinking about getting solar panels. Are you saying the HOA can't prevent that? Correct, Gloria said. The HOA can have reasonable aesthetic guidelines, but they cannot prevent installation or make it significantly more expensive. If any of you want solar panels, you have the legal right to install them. I could see the calculation happening in people's faces. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about their rights, too. Richard spoke up again. I move that we table the special assessment vote and instead authorize the board to explore settlement options with Mr. Emerson. Second, said Carol immediately. All in favor? This time, 3 hands went up. Richard, Carol, and a younger man I didn't know. Deborah and Brenda voted against. Motion passes, Richard said. Brenda, I recommend we schedule a closed session to discuss settlement parameters. Brenda looked like she might explode. Her face had gone from red to purple. This is absurd. We are not surrendering to this man's extortion. It's not extortion, Gloria said calmly. It's a legitimate legal claim backed by state law. But since the board apparently needs time to consult with competent counsel, we'll give you 1 week. After that, we're moving forward with discovery, depositions, and we'll be adding the costs of all that to our damages claim. We left the meeting to mixed reactions. Some people thanked me for standing up to the board. Others glared. Tom actually followed us to the parking lot and shouted that I was a traitor to the community. His wife, again, dragged him away while apologizing. On Monday morning, I received a call from Richard Paulson. The board met in closed session yesterday. 3 of us want to settle. Brenda and Deborah are still refusing. But here's the thing. I did some research over the weekend. Did you know that board members can be held personally liable for willful misconduct? I did not. Well, they can. And what Brenda did, removing your panels without even consulting the rest of the board, that could qualify. I've scheduled an emergency meeting for tomorrow night. I'm going to move to remove Brenda as president and appoint an interim president who will negotiate a settlement with you. I think I have the votes. What about Deborah? Deborah will fall in line once Brenda's gone. She's only backing Brenda because they're friends. Carol's already flipped, as you saw. She told me privately that she thinks Brenda has lost her mind. Tuesday night's emergency meeting was even more packed than Saturday's. Word had spread that there might be a coup. I didn't attend, but Gloria did, and she called me afterward with an update. Richard pulled it off. Brenda has been removed as president. They appointed Carol as interim president, and she's already reached out to me about settlement terms. How would you feel about them paying for complete replacement of your system, plus $15,000 in compensation for your time and trouble, plus all attorney's fees? That seems reasonable. What about the criminal charges? That's up to the DA, not us. But I can tell them that your cooperation with any prosecution won't depend on the civil settlement. Keep the two separate. The settlement was finalized within a week. The HOA agreed to pay Sunbright Solutions to install a new, slightly upgraded system on my roof. They paid me $15,000 in damages, and they paid Gloria's fees, which came to about $12,000. They also agreed to update the HOA bylaws to explicitly acknowledge California solar rights laws and create a streamlined approval process for solar installations. But the criminal matter wasn't over. 2 weeks after the settlement was finalized, I received a call from Assistant DA Michael Reeves. Badafatiu. Mr. Emerson, we've completed our investigation. We're filing criminal charges against Brenda Matthews for felony vandalism and misdemeanor trespass. We're also filing charges against the contractor she hired to remove your panels, a guy named Steve Morrison. He should have known better than to remove permitted solar installations without authorization from the property owner. What happens now? There'll be an arraignment, then probably a preliminary hearing. Given the strength of the evidence, I expect both defendants to plead guilty. Ms. Matthews is looking at possible jail time, though as a first-time offender she'll probably get probation. Mr. Morrison will likely lose his contractor's license. The arraignment happened on a Thursday morning in Sacramento County Superior Court. I took the day off to attend. The courtroom was small, and I sat in the back row of the gallery. Brenda arrived with her attorney, a tired-looking man in an ill-fitting suit. She saw me, and her face went hard. When her case was called, the judge read the charges. 1 count of felony vandalism, 1 count of misdemeanor trespass, 1 count of misdemeanor conspiracy. Brenda pled not guilty to all charges. Her attorney argued for release on her own recognizance, which the judge granted. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks out. Steve Morrison, the contractor, was called next. He also pled not guilty, but his attorney immediately requested a sidebar with the DA. After a whispered conversation, they came back and the attorney said, "Your Honor, my client would like to change his plea. He pleads guilty to all charges and is prepared to cooperate fully with the prosecution." The judge accepted the plea and scheduled sentencing for 8 weeks out. Morrison wouldn't face jail time, the DA explained later, but he'd face significant fines and lose his contractor's license for at least 5 years. Brenda's preliminary hearing was a formality. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Emails where she'd discussed removing my panels with Deborah, text messages with Steve Morrison arranging the removal, the invoice she'd signed demanding payment for the destruction, her own words on the witness stand where she admitted to ordering the removal but claimed she had the authority to do so under HOA bylaws. The judge bound her over for trial, but everyone knew she wouldn't actually go to trial. 2 weeks later, her attorney worked out a plea deal. Brenda pled guilty to felony vandalism in exchange for 3 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and a $10,000 fine payable to the California Solar Initiative Fund. She was also required to take a course on California HOA law. The sentencing hearing was packed with media. Jennifer Wu from Channel 3 was there, along with reporters from the Sacramento Bee and several solar industry publications. Brenda stood before the judge, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. The judge, a woman named Sandra Morrison, no relation to the contractor, didn't mince words. "Ms. Matthews, your actions in this case demonstrate a fundamental misunderstanding of your role and authority as an HOA president. You are not a dictator. You do not have the right to destroy other people's property simply because you disapprove of it. The state of California has made solar energy a priority, and HO. As that interfere with that priority will face consequences. You're fortunate that Mr. Emerson is a patient man and that the district attorney was willing to offer you a plea agreement. I'm sentencing you as agreed, but I want to be clear that any violation of your probation will result in jail time. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," Brenda said quietly. "Additionally, I'm ordering that as part of your community service, you must give presentations to at least 10 HOA boards about California solar rights laws and the limits of HOA authority. Perhaps you can prevent others from making the same mistakes you did." After the hearing, I spoke briefly with reporters. I kept my comments simple. I was glad justice had been served. I hoped other HOA boards would learn from this case, and I was happy to be back home with my solar panels functioning properly. My new solar system had been installed 3 weeks earlier, and it was working beautifully. Sunbright Solutions had upgraded me to more efficient panels at no extra cost, partly as an apology for the nightmare, and partly because the case had generated so much publicity for them. Marcus Chen told me they'd received dozens of new installation requests from people in HOA communities who were inspired by my story. Life in Meadowbrook Estates slowly returned to normal, though the dynamics had shifted. Carol remained as HOA president and turned out to be reasonable and competent. She implemented the new solar approval process, and within 3 months, 5 other houses in the neighborhood had panels installed. Tom, my hostile neighbor, actually apologized to me one day while we were both getting mail. He admitted that he'd gotten solar panels himself after seeing my electric bills drop by 90%. Richard Paulson became a good friend. We'd have beers on his back porch occasionally, and he'd tell me stories about the old HOA regime, the petty tyrannies and power plays that Brenda had engaged in for years. Apparently, I wasn't her first victim, just her first victim who'd fought back effectively. One evening, about 6 months after everything concluded, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find a young couple, probably in their late 20s, standing nervously on my porch. "Mr. Emerson? I'm David Park, and this is my wife Elena. We just bought a house in a different HOA community in Roseville, and we want to install solar panels, but our HOA is giving us trouble. We read about your case. Would you be willing to talk to us about what happened?" I invited them in and made coffee. For the next 2 hours, I told them the whole story. I gave them Gloria Bennett's contact information and explained the relevant laws. I showed them my settlement agreement with personal information redacted so they could see what a successful resolution looked like. They left grateful and determined. A month later, David sent me an email. Their HOA had backed down immediately once they'd cited my case in California solar law. They were getting their panels installed the following week. That became a pattern. Every few weeks, someone would contact me, either through email or social media, usually someone facing HOA opposition to solar panels. I'd share my story, connect them with Gloria or other solar rights attorneys, and explain the law. Most of the time, once the HOA realized they were on shaky legal ground, they'd back down. A few times, people had to threaten lawsuits. But I never heard of another case where an HOA actually removed installed panels. Gloria told me that my case had become required reading in California HOA law courses. She'd been contacted by the California Association of Community Managers to give presentations about solar rights. The case had changed the landscape, at least in California. About a year after the incident, I attended a community barbecue in the Meadowbrook Estates common area. It was a gorgeous Sacramento evening, warm but not hot, with a nice breeze. Kids were running around, adults were drinking beer and wine, and someone had set up a live band. Carol, the HOA president, tapped a microphone to get everyone's attention. "I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge something important. Our community went through a difficult time last year. We learned some hard lessons about the law, about respecting property rights, and about working together. I'm proud to say that we've come out stronger. We now have 12 homes with solar panels, our community electric bills are down significantly, and we've updated our bylaws to comply with California law. I want to thank Patrick Emerson for having the courage to stand up for his rights, even when it would have been easier to back down." People applauded, some enthusiastically, others politely. Tom gave me a thumbs up from across the lawn. His wife was standing with Elena Park, who'd mentioned they were moving to Meadowbrook Estates because they'd heard it was now HOA drama-free. I felt good, not triumphant exactly, but satisfied. I'd stood up for myself, I'd won, and I'd made things better not just for me but for other people too. Later that night, after the barbecue had wound down, I sat on my back porch with a beer, looking at my roof. The solar panels gleamed in the fading sunlight, sophisticated technology quietly converting photons into electricity, powering my life while reducing my carbon footprint. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Gloria. "Another HOA solar case just landed on my desk. You've inspired a revolution. Hope you're proud." I texted back, "Just trying to follow the law." "That's all any of us can do. Thanks for being brave enough to fight." I set the phone down and took a long drink of beer. The whole experience had been exhausting, frustrating, and occasionally terrifying. Facing down Brenda Matthews and the HOA board, going public with my story, sitting through court hearings, All of it had pushed me far outside my comfort zone. But it had been worth it. The law was on my side, and I'd proven that HOAs weren't above the law. No one had the right to destroy your property just because they disagreed with your choices, not even an organization with association in its name. My solar panels would keep generating electricity for 25 to 30 years, saving me hundreds of thousands of dollars over their lifetime. They'd reduce my carbon emissions by tons per year. And they'd stand as a symbol, visible from the street, that individual rights mattered, that state law had meaning, and that bullies could be beaten if you were willing to stand up to them. I finished my beer and went inside. Tomorrow I'd probably get another email from someone fighting their HOA. I'd respond, share my story, offer advice. It had become a sort of informal second job, being an advocate for solar rights and property rights. But tonight, I was just a guy with solar panels and a house that finally felt like home. The HOA drama was behind me. Brenda Matthews was on probation and hopefully learning something, and the Meadowbrook Estates community was better off than it had been before. Sometimes doing the right thing is hard, sometimes it costs money and time and stress. But when you come out the other side, when you've won not just for yourself but for others too, it's worth every difficult moment. I turned off the lights and headed to bed. Through my bedroom window, I could see my neighbor's house across the street. They'd installed solar panels last month. Carol had approved the application in 48 hours. The system was smaller than mine, but still significant. That was the real victory, I thought as I drifted off to sleep. Not the settlement money or the legal precedent or even Brenda's criminal conviction. The real victory was that it was now easier for everyone else. The next person who wanted solar panels in Meadowbrook Estates wouldn't have to fight the battle I'd fought. They'd fill out a simple form, get quick approval, and install their system without drama. That was worth everything. That was why I'd stood my ground, why I'd hired Gloria, why I'd gone through the lawsuit and the criminal proceedings and the media attention to make things better for the people who came after me. And now, every time I looked at my roof, every time I saw my near-zero electric bills, every time someone contacted me for advice, I was reminded that standing up to bullies, even bullies with official titles and organizational authority, was not just possible, but necessary. The HOA had torn down my solar panels, charged me for it, and been utterly confident in their authority to do so. They'd been wrong. State law had protected me completely, just as it would protect anyone else in California who wanted to harness the sun's energy. That night, I slept soundly, knowing that justice had been served, wrongs had been righted, and my solar panels would keep generating clean energy for decades to come. The nightmare was over, and the lesson was clear. Know your rights, stand your ground, and never let anyone, not even an HOA board, convince you that their rules matter more than the law. In the morning, I'd wake up to another beautiful Sacramento day, another day of solar power flowing into my home, another day of living in a community that had learned, through hard experience, what the limits of HOA authority really were. And if someone else in California faced what I'd faced, they'd have my story to reference, my case to cite, and my experience to prove that standing up to HOA overreach was not just possible, but winnable. The sun would rise, my panels would start generating electricity, and life would go on. But it would go on better than before, fairer than before, and with a clearer understanding of what rights mattered and how to protect them. That was the true value of what I'd been through. Not the personal vindication, though that felt good, but the broader impact on HOA governance and solar rights in California. As I finally drifted into sleep, I smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new emails from people seeking advice, new opportunities to help others navigate the complex world of HOA law and solar installations. But I was ready for it. I'd been through the fire and come out stronger. My solar panels were proof of that, shining on my roof, a testament to the power of standing up for what's right.